Finally, sort of. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we're going to talk about New York City Mayor Eric Adams announcing that he's going to end the vaccine mandate in the city effective November the 1st of this year. Now, this was a long time coming. There should have never been a vaccine mandate to begin with, because why should I be forced to get this particular shot in my body if I don't want to? If I want to get the vaccine, that should be my choice. That should be my own personal medical decision. It shouldn't be up to government officials to dictate medical decisions upon me. That's just the reality from my point of view, and I think from many of your views as well. If you want to get the vax, that should be your prerogative, if nothing else. It shouldn't be forced upon you. But anyway, they're going to end the vaccine mandate in New York City November the 1st, except for municipal workers. Oh yeah. Oh, you thought it was done completely? No. Let me explain. So Eric Adams is going to end the vaccine mandate for the private sector. So if you have a small business or whatever's going on, or you work for a small business, then there will be no more vaccine mandate for you. However, if you work for New York City, there's still a vaccine mandate for you. Now, I think that's being done for legal reasons, because wasn't there a lawsuit from municipal workers against New York City? And didn't they fire like 1,600 workers? We'll talk about that in a minute as far as the exact number. There's an article we're going to read here. But I think there's a legal reason for that, because explain to me this. What's the other reason why there would still be a vaccine mandate? Didn't your man Joe Biden just say in Detroit the other day that the pandemic was over with? If the pandemic is over, then why do we need vaccine mandates? Again, there shouldn't have been a vaccine mandate from the beginning, but if the president goes on television, prime time, 60 Minutes, CBS, and says the pandemic is over, why do we need vaccine mandates for anybody? And how does it make sense to have no vaccine mandates for anyone visiting the city, flying into, leaving out of, private people working, how does it make sense to not have vaccine mandates for anybody except for municipal workers? What is the logic behind that? I think it's because of the legal reasons and nothing else. Now, your man Kyrie Irving responded to this particular thing, because remember, that whole debacle, oh man, that was crazy. Now, I'm going to try to recall all of what happened here. And if I get some things wrong, y'all please correct me in the comments below. But Kyrie Irving, he is a basketball player, plays for the Brooklyn Nets. And they play in Brooklyn, of course, at the Barclays Center. This is in New York City. Now, right when the mandates were happening in New York, it was for municipal workers, private sector, and that included anybody who worked in a building in New York, but not necessarily people coming into the building. I think maybe at one point it was if you had to come into the building, but then that was dropped. I'm not really sure. But I know at one point in time, you could be a fan coming to New York City, watching the game. There was no vaccine mandate for you. And I think for the away team, like let's say, for example, the Boston Celtics came to play in New York City. They would not need to be vaccinated, but the New York City players, whether it be the Nets or the Knicks playing over in Manhattan, Times Square, I think that's where they play, they would need to be vaxxed. So Kyrie Irving plays for the Nets. He did not get vaccinated, so he was not able to play for the majority of the season. I think he only played like 29 games in the season out of 82. Did they go to the playoffs? I don't think they went to the playoffs at all, because they were not doing very well without Kyrie Irving. But anyway, I digress. The point is that he was not able to play the majority of the season because he was not vaccinated. And then they loosened the restrictions specifically for athletes and entertainers. Seriously. Like if you were coming to New York City to perform in a band and you worked or you would perform in the Barclays Center, there was no vaccine mandate for you. If you're Kyrie Irving and you play for the Nets, then you're good to go. No vaccine mandate for you, although at one point there was. But still, there was a vaccine mandate for the private sector and municipal workers. Now, before I get to that, Kyrie Irving came out and spoke on this. Okay, he spoke on this and he says it's one of the biggest violations of human rights. And that's Kyrie right there. Of course, this article will be in the description box. And you can see what it says right here. I won't read the entire thing. It says Kyrie Irving is speaking out against the mandatory COVID-19 vaccine enforcement, calling it one of the biggest violations of human rights in history. The Nets superstar, one of the most well-known celebs who personally opposed getting the jab, shout out to Aaron Rodgers as well, took to Twitter to air out his grievances, and he didn't mince his words. Now, here's a tweet. If I can work and be unvaccinated, then all of my brothers and sisters who are also unvaccinated should be able to do the same without being discriminated against, vilified, or fired. This enforced vaccine pandemic is one of the biggest violations of human rights in history. Now, I don't see a thing wrong with what he said. That was 100% on point. 1,000%. Right? And of course, you see right here, it's like he made the point. It's like, well, look, I'm able to play because, again, there was an exception made for athletes and entertainers, but not an exception made for people that work in the city and people that are municipal workers who also work in the city. You see what I mean? It just makes sense. If you're going to release the vax mandate for private workers, then it should be the same thing for everyone. But again, I think the reason why is because of some legal stuff going on. Now, let's get back to this here. Here's an article I wanted to mention. NYC ends vaccine mandate for private sector, but not city workers. Because like there was a press conference where he mentioned this. All right, I'm going to just kind of skim through it. So there was a press conference, but during that same announcement at City Hall, Adams said the city will continue its vaccine requirement for municipal workers, which began under the de Blasio administration last year. As of July, more than 1,750 municipal employees had reportedly been fired for refusing to get shots, according to the New York Post. Quote, vaccinated workers have carried out their jobs and they stepped up when the city needed them, Adams said. We think it's imperative to send the right message and lead by example. Is this a recent quote, or was that a quote that he said back then, justify mandating vaccines on municipal workers? If it's a recent quote, how does it make any sense? If everyone is allowed to work and live and play in New York City, except for city workers, how does it make any sense? Where is the science in that? You see what I'm saying? It's like we have quote unquote science being decided upon and enforced by government agencies at random, just random stuff. Like I saw a video, maybe I'll put it in the box for your viewing pleasure, but there was a video. I'm gonna come back so you can see me clearly. This article will be in the box, but there was a video where a doctor, I forget exactly what he was, but he was talking about how he had conversations with people and high levels of power in the government and other doctors about the restrictions that we had. Remember the whole 6 feet thing? Remember the arrows on the floor in the grocery store? The dumbest thing in the world. Like somehow the virus ain't going to spread if you just walk in one direction versus the other. If you're walking that way and I'm walking this way, the virus can't get you because it only goes in a straight line. The dumbest thing in the world. If we converge right here and I cough or I collide into your cart or something like that, you got the cooties. You got the China cough, the cooties, whatever you want to call it, right? Silly. But anyway, I digress. The man in the video, the doctor, was talking about how these restrictions were largely just made up.
There was no science. We made it up. And I was stunned. I stood there and I looked and said, Dr. Redford, what do you mean made it up? And like I was laughing. And he said, well, you know, some people talk 12 feet, some said 9, some said 1. Some countries talked about 3 feet. It looked like 6 feet would have worked. And so we went with 6 feet.
The whole 6 foot thing. He was like, well, some countries said 3 feet. Some said 10 feet. Some said 12 feet. We're just saying 6 feet because it kind of just makes sense. It's a reasonable number to say. There's no science behind it, really. We're just saying that makes sense. All right. But see, the problem is a lot of actual legislation, well, not actual laws, I'm not mistaken, but actual rules were passed that killed small businesses. You are a small diner. You have 12 chairs in your diner. You're done because you cannot 6 foot distance those 12 chairs in that little small space you have. So you're done forever. The PPP loans and whatnot was not enough to overcome the 6 foot distance rule that you can't overcome. So this whole thing was a travesty. It was a big mess. And it just goes to show that government is largely incompetent. Okay. They should be there in a very small capacity. doing things that they can do with large resources, having the military and improving the roads, which, I mean, these roads out here, good night. These roads are a complete mess. But anyway, different story. They should be there to handle some of the more basic societal functions. They should not be in charge of medical things that should be between you, yourself, and your doctor. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about Eric Adams releasing the vax mandate for private workers, but not for municipal workers? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys should know where I stand. It makes sense to release this. And again, I'm going to say it one more time. It should have never been on the books to begin with at all, but it makes sense to release it now, especially ever since your man said the pandemic is over. But why is there still a block on municipal workers? Probably because of the lawsuit that could be pending. Probably because now you got to say, oops, we fired 1,750 of you guys. But it's all good now, right? Because we released it. Now you got to pay them a bunch of money. You got to kind of allocate those resources and funds to pay them back. They may keep the vax mandate in place to prevent from having to pay them. That whole thing is a big mess. These rules, again, is just kind of made up, arbitrary by the government, no science behind it. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.